Before you move to Portland, Oregon, there are things that you just absolutely have to know. And I'm not talking about the stuff that you hear on Instagram or if you hear from other people who just visit here one time in the summer. I'm talking about real life, day-to-day realities that out-of-state buyers and relocation clients are surprised whenever they first move here. And it can absolutely be a make or break decision. Stick around to the very end because I'm going to be going over the number one factor that causes more out-of-state buyers to eventually leave Portland. And I'm not talking about traffic, I'm not talking about pricing or even the housing market. It's something that you don't even realize. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is Portland is a city of neighborhoods. Now, depending on where you live and where you ultimately choose to live on, it's gonna change your type of lifestyle and experience. We have the east side, and then we have the west side that's obviously going to be divided by the Willamette River. But more importantly, choosing the right neighborhood. You obviously gonna potentially land in Northeast Portland, Beaverton, Hillsborough, Southwest Portland, and every single area almost feels like its own community. Now, every community is going to have its own local markets, local gyms, local shops, local businesses that if you want to support them, that ultimately it's going to dictate what your lifestyle is going to be. Now, obviously there's going to be other areas that are going to be more urban, areas such as the Central East Side where the walkability is going to be very extreme. Lots of bike paths, lots of access to trails. And so if you're wanting that more of that urban lifestyle with a smaller lot size, a lot of on-street parking, the ability to support local businesses, maybe the east side is going to be more favorable, or potentially if you want more food options, then consider the Northeast Portland side of town. But then you have the west side. Now this is going to be predominantly more hilly, so more bigger lot sizes, going to have access to a lot more jobs such as Nvidia, Intel, Nike. This is going to attribute to a lot faster growth in terms of home value because the younger demographic is going to gravitate definitely towards that side for the employment options. And so depending on where you want to live and where you ultimately land can really truly make or break how your experiences here is going to be in the Portland metro area. Now, you can love Portland in one neighborhood, but you can also hate it in another. And so it's so important for you guys to choose the right neighborhood whenever you're considering moving to the Portland, Oregon. My team and I, we specialize and we help relocation clients every single month. And so if you're needing help or if you have a simple question, definitely reach out, give me a call or text or a simple email. Number two, the cost of living is dependent on where you live and land at. So obviously we have the east and west side. By no means either side is cheap. We're still definitely going to be rated one of the higher cities across the whole US, but for sure we're the cheapest city on the West Coast. Now, east versus west, it's going to give you two different lifestyle. On the west side, you're going to have more hillies, and so you're going to be more car dependent. Home prices tend to be more elevated due to the fact that more of these tech jobs are going to be on this side of time versus the east side, a lot more walkability, smaller lot size, a lot more on-street parking, and so this is going to enforce you to maybe bike more, walk more, and so depending on which side of you live is going to be giving you the ultimate experience of what type of lifestyle that you actually want. But not only that, not only the east and the west side, you have different neighborhoods as well, potentially in Northeast Portland near Mississippi Street, or towards the south near Oregon City, Milwaukee, Gladstone, two totally different areas. Now, obviously, the southeast portion of the city of Portland is going to offer more of that rural lifestyle, bigger lots, slower pace of living. But as you get closer to the northeast side, obviously, it's going to be more of an urban area. You have a lot more access to amenities, restaurants, businesses, shops. And then on the west side, of course, you have Beaverton, the hub of Nike, Hillsborough, the hub of Intel. And so these areas are going to be greatly dependent on not only housing, but what your grocery costs are, your commute times, as well as gas prices. And so depending on where you decide to ultimately live on is going to be so important because it's truly going to dictate your lifestyle as well as your experience whenever you first live here. Now, this leads me to number three, commute times and bridge bottlenecks. This is important because yes, we are divided by the Willamette River, and yes, we have, 10, 11, 12 bridges, but crossing the river is going to be a drastic issue, especially during those peak rush hour times. You may think a 5-mile commute could be 15 minutes on one part of the day, but in another part of the day, it could be 45 minutes to an hour. And so you might think living in one part of the city, then you could just easily commute to work on this part of the city. And on the actual Google Maps, it shows that it's a relatively short distance. But in reality, 10 minutes is not 10 minutes in real life. And so commuting is going to be totally dependent on what you decide and where you decide to live on. Like I've mentioned so many times in the past, the east side offers more of that urban area, and so more dependent on bikes, more walking, versus the west side, you're going to be more dependent on the cars driving because it's a more hilly terrain. It's not as walkable. Access to local shops and coffee shops and breweries and bars is going to be more sparse. Rush hour patterns are very local and specific to a certain area. For example, one of the peak busy times is going to be I-5 and 205 bridges that's crossing the Vancouver and the Portland metro market. And so oftentimes we see a lot of people commuting back and forth on those two bridges because they are choosing to live on the Vancouver side of town, but then commuting to the Portland for work and vice versa. Obviously closer towards Wilsonville, towards the southern part of the metro, you're going to see a lot of people going back and forth from Salem, which is the capital. And so commute times and traffic time is very dependent on what area and what location that you decide on. Ultimately, choosing the wrong area, wrong neighborhood, wrong side of town, like I've mentioned before, it's going to give you and dictate your type of lifestyle and type of experience here in the Portland metro area. Number 4, older housing is extremely pretty prevalent, especially on the east side of town, where you see homes as early as 1890, 1900s, all the way up to 1950s. Of course, there's going to be newer developments, but the majority of the homes on the east side, you know, they're craftsman style homes, bungalows, smaller single level homes, small lot size. But with these older homes, they can also attribute to a lot of issues. Older roofs or older siding, knob and tube wiring, galvanized pipes, maybe sewer party lines, issues with just a multitude of things. And so it does have that charm of keep Portland weird, or that heart of Portland living on the east side, but it comes with a drawback. And so you always constantly have to make sure you're keeping up with maintenance, updates, and making sure the older home, especially this home built in the early 1900s, are affordable and then maintains its value come resale. And so with the idea of that, inspections are so important for out-of-state buyers, as well as my clients that I've helped in the past, especially if they're trying to focus on older homes on the east side, such as Northeast Portland or even East Portland, that having a good comprehensive inspection that takes maybe 2 to 3 hours long, and checking the sewer line, the plumbing, the electrical, all going to be important for you to have a long-term good living experience here in the metro. Number 5, lifestyle. Now, Portland is different. Yes, we're a major city, but are we in LA or in New York? Absolutely. We prioritize something a little bit different. We prioritize a little bit more of a work-life balance. People come here and move here mostly for the reasons of what I've said in this video, but the fact that it just moves naturally at a slower pace. We have a different demographic that is choosing more nature versus more of a status symbol. And not only that, we have a strong fitness, strong food, strong local businesses, all in order. So knowing that, if you're looking for something that has a little bit more of a bustling lifestyle, such as nightlife, or something that's more fast and more business focused like a New York City, then unfortunately, maybe Portland, Oregon might not be for you. But for a lot of people who choose this work-life balance, slower lifestyle, this can be a perfect opportunity for you to experience that here in Portland, Oregon. Now, this goes me to number 6. Homelessness is very neighborhood specific. Now, it's not what you see on the news. We're not a, war zone that some people say. We're much different than that. And so, yes, we do deal with it, but as with any other city in the entire US, but it's very specific. And so, for example, Milwaukee, probably a 10 to 15 minute drive from downtown Portland itself. You may think it's probably fiddled and crawled with homelessness and encampments and stuff like that, but absolutely by no means. there is no homelessness. But of course, as you're going to get closer to the downtown area, maybe Pearl District or even in Selwood, yeah, you're going to start to see some homeless people. They tend to keep to themselves. And of course, when you go to the west side of town, such as Beaverton, Hillsborough, Tigard, Tualatin, honestly, anytime I'm driving over there, I'm showing clients selling homes, I do not see any homelessness on that side of town. And so very specific to what you decide on, and if this is an important factor for you whenever you're considering moving here, it's best to reach out and understand the ramifications of choosing the correct neighborhood, not only for the cost of living aspect, but to potentially deal with the homelessness, the crimes, and the drug abuse that some parts of the city does have. And again, this leads me to definitely stick around to the last bullet point, because this factor that I'll talk last outreigns the homelessness and the cost of living and the traffic times that I've mentioned already, because this number one factor causes more out-of-state buyers to eventually leave and just ultimately not have a good experience here. But now let's talk about number 7, which is social life in the community that we have here. Now, this is actually pretty important here. Whenever I first moved here to Portland, the first thing I realized is other factors such as the rain, the weather, but more importantly, it's the social dilemma here. For the most part, here, the people of Portland, they're very nice, but they're also not as outgoing compared to other cities that I've potentially visited or the cities that I lived in Texas. Now, this is not a bad thing. We're just a little bit more reserved here. We keep to ourselves. We're more focused on our own individual interests. And so how I developed a friendship, and I'm a big proponent of it, is to find a social hobby or social group to be a part of, because building communities happens through my hobbies. Those hobbies include golfing, going to the gym, love the gym community. Obviously work is in that aspect where, I'm always talking to a lot of individuals, and so finding common ground, common interest is definitely the number one gateway for you to have a really good experience here. Find a running club, find people who love hiking. There's tons of people out there. If you find your community, and I promise you this, if you find your community, you'll ultimately have such a great experience here that is unmatched. I moved here many, many years ago from Texas, and I have not looked back. So to end on this little segment is transplants like myself. I had to go out and hunt and go find my circle by being involved in groups such as golfing and running and whatever. And so you might need to be intentional whenever you first decide to move here. Now, this leads me to the next portion, which is what I mentioned. You got to find hobbies. You got to find common interests. And the biggest common interest that we have here in the Pacific Northwest is access to nature is unlimited. And I kid you not. Going hiking, going for a quick walk in one of the multitude of parks that we have all scattered throughout the entire metro. Daily walks, daily hiking, weekend hikings, going to waterfalls, going down south, going to wherever is just a natural daily part of life. And for you to actually enjoy what the Pacific Northwest and Portland, Oregon has to offer, you have to be a part of that culture. It's not for everyone. I wouldn't say I'm an avid hiker. I don't go out every single weekend, but oftentimes, if I am deciding to go out and experience nature, I'm going out in the morning after a quick workout. I'm going for a quick hike. By lunchtime, I'm going to a local brewery with one of my friends, maybe grabbing a quick 9-hole golf round with one of my buddies. And then by dinner time, I'm back at home hanging out with my friends and families. And so being and having nature as an integral part of your life, I think is going to be important for you to actually enjoy what Portland has to offer, because like I mentioned before, there is not that fast, bustling nightlife that we have to offer compared to LA, but what we have to offer is the access to nature. I mean, you have the mountain to the east, you have the coast to the west, and so a multitude of parks. For example, there's this large hike down south near Silverton and Salem. You see 7 waterfalls. I don't remember any hikes in Texas where I saw 7 waterfalls in one single hike. And so utilizing nature to actually improve your experience and actually enjoy the outdoors is going to be a critical part for you to actually experience it here in the Pacific Northwest. Number 9. Now, Portland isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Now, if you decide to hate Portland or love it, neither reactions is wrong. Portland is just a very unique city. It pertains to a very unique personality. And so you either love it or you hate it. Now, expectations of living here in this great city of Portland matter more than the budget itself. Because if you decide to live here because maybe it is a slower lifestyle, but don't realize the cost of living that it has, then it might not be for you. If you're not really enjoyable of the access to nature, then maybe it isn't for you. The clients that I help here, especially the ones relocating here, I give them expectations up front, and they're more intentional about where they live, where they decide to live, what type of lifestyle and experience they actually ultimately want to enjoy. If they want to live close to the access to nature, or if they want that more of that urban lifestyle that Eastside has to offer, or if they don't care about that stuff, they care about more of a modern home approach because it's closer to Intel, Nike, Nvidia, then ultimately whatever area you decide on is going to ultimately dictate what your experience is and what type of lifestyle that you actually want for you and your family. But then this leads me into the last section, which is the most important. I appreciate you sticking around because we're going to talk about the weather. This one catches so many people off guard, including myself whenever I first moved here many years ago from Texas. Now, it is a common misconception that it just rains so much, it drizzles so much, but that's not the case. With the actual story here from living here for many years now is it's just mostly overcast, gray skies. It can be pretty depressing not seeing the sun for weeks and months on a time, but do we get rain? Yeah, it's gonna drizzle, it's pretty light. Is it heavy rain? Every now and then, but like I mentioned, the surrounding theme of the weather is just mostly overcast for 2/3 out of the year. But come summer, it is short, but it's absolutely amazing. This is where the city truly wakes up and thrives, and why people, including myself, gravitated towards Portland, Oregon. And of course, yeah, the weather is going to affect your mood, your lifestyle, your commute times. It doesn't matter. Some people thrive, some people struggle. Some people love it here, and some people hate it here. Again, neither of those reactions is wrong. In order for you to actually have a good lifestyle, just understand the ramifications and the expectations of actually how to live a good life here in Portland, Oregon. And this is why it's the #1 reason that a lot of out-of-state buyers, they first move here, but then they realize the amount of non-existent sun there is, and maybe 1/3 of the year, is so sparse and bare that it can make or break it. Because having the constant overcast can be a game changer, can be a killer for you, as well as your mind, as well as your family. So those are the 10 biggest things that you need to know before moving to Portland, Oregon, whether it's this year or next. Portland can be an incredible place to live by all means, but in order to have that great experience, you have to choose the right lifestyle, the right experience, and understand the expectations from day one of living in Portland, Oregon, because Portland isn't a one-size-fits-all type of city. We're very specific on our neighborhoods. We're very specific, and we support local flares and local businesses. If you're relocating from out of state, it's so important to choose the right neighborhood, the right area, whether it's east versus west, whether it's northeast Portland or southwest Portland, Beaverton or Hillsborough. Reach out to my team, because my team and we help relocation clients every single month move here to Portland, Oregon. And so if you're needing help, definitely reach out to my team and I. Make sure you like, subscribe, and reach out with the contact information below. Leave a comment on where you're potentially going to be moving from. I read them all, and so I drop videos every single week, and I will see you at the next one.